Hey everybody, I said I would make a video and come on here and show you guys how I use my camera. This is the EOS R6 and, oops, where's the, oh, there it is. The EOS R6, and it's the one everybody's been getting, you know, because Caitlin decided that she was going to get the one, she was okay with the 20 megapixels, so I kind of did probably what all of you did and decided I was okay with it too, and I've shot two, I only got this maybe 4 weeks ago, but I have been shooting with an EOS R, which is a mirrorless, and so it works very similar to this, but even the focusing is a little bit different on this. So I kind of had to get used to it all over again, although it wasn't as big of a learning curve for me as it was from when I went from my DSLR to my EOS R, which is a mirrorless. I had to find my groove with focusing, and so that's what I thought I would come and show you guys how I found my groove, and maybe it will help some of you find your groove too. It's certainly not the only way to do things. Obviously the camera has a million autofocus modes, and so what works for me might not work for you, but let me show you how I do it at least. I will tell you that except for ring and small detail shots, I never take my camera out of this mode. It works for me even if there are 100 people on the dance floor, and it works especially well if there's only 1 or 2 people that you're taking pictures of. So I can still do this, and I'll show you how I actually use it too, and not just the settings that it's on. So I'm going to turn this on. Okay, and hopefully, let's see, my window's over there. All right, here we go. Hopefully you can, oh, it's already turning itself off. So that is one thing I have done, is I've made it so that the screen goes black and it times out really quickly, so I use less battery. But you know, all you have to do is kind of, you know, activate it, you know, to get it back up again. So let me go to my quality mode. So here we go. Here's what I have. The first one here is the autofocus mode. So it's the one up here in the upper left-hand corner. And I probably need to change my timeout just for this video so it will stop turning off. So I'm going to pause this video and change that. Okay, back in business. I turned the viewfinder timeout to disabled, so it will just, oh, I disabled it, so I don't know. It's, I guess it just is going to do what it's going to do. Sorry. Okay, so I'm pushing the quality button right over here. Sorry, I'm just using my phone to video this, so the quality might not be so good. Okay, so here's my quality settings, and like I said, oops, let's try this again. There we go. Up here is where my autofocus is. So I'm going to tap on this, and then you can see down here, there's a whole bunch of settings right here, and you can see the one that I have. Oh, that is so frustrating. Let's see. Quality. So you can see the options that are down here. Now, I have never ever used any of these over here. On my DSLR, I used to use single point focus, which is this one right here. Let's see. Yeah, oh, spot. It says spot AF. So that's a single point, and that's what I always used to use on my DSLR. But on this one, I use this tracking right here, and it's called, well, it has a picture of a smiley face and then it says tracking, so it's face tracking. But also you can also see that it says enable right here. So the eye detection, you want to have it on enable, and that way when it sees a person, it will automatically try to detect their eye. And by default what it does is when you point it at something, it will automatically focus on the person's eye, the person that is closest to the camera, or the person that looks like they're the main focus of the camera. And so usually, you know, especially if you're just shooting a bride and groom, or if, sorry, you can probably hear my kids screaming in the background. It does a great job if there's only one person, or if there's only one, if it looks like there's only one person to focus on. It does a fantastic job. In fact, all you need to do is point it at a person, and maybe I'll have one of those loud kids come in here and I'll show you how it works. So in just a minute. So let me show you the rest of my settings first. Okay, let me turn this quality button back on, okay? The next important thing that I do is this second one down here, and you can see that there's two options, one shot and AI servo. Or, sorry, not AI, just says servo. So I always choose, you could see that mine is set on servo. I never ever also change this to one shot. And the reason why is because if you're using face detection and tracking, or yes, that is not going to shine if you're just using one shot. Because it will find the eye, but then it won't continually refocus if that eye moves around. And so you want to use servo so it is, well, and then there's another option where it will only focus if you push the shutter halfway down, then it will continually focus on that eye. And those two are the most important settings that I wanted to show you. And that's because, especially processionals and recessionals, if the bride and groom or the bridal party or whoever is coming toward the camera or away from the camera, this thing will keep locked on their eye, and you can just shoot, 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 and you can get sharp shots all the way down the aisle. The next thing, oh, here's another thing right here. So there is an option right here. This is the worst. There's an option right here, and it looks like a picture of, it kind of looks like a picture of a car with the word, well, mine says off below it, and yours might say on. I think by default, it comes on. Anyway, that is the touch shutter. So if, I always turn mine off because I think it's really annoying to push on something and then have it just take the picture. I want to make sure that I know that it's focusing on the correct thing before I take my picture. And so to have that touch shutter enabled is annoying to me, but it might be super helpful for you. So I'll show you how that works. Let me turn it on. So to turn it off and on, all you have to do is tap it. So tap, and now it is on. It says touch shutter enabled. See that? I'll do it again. There it is, disabled, enabled. So now if I take a picture of something, let's see. Let me twist this. I'll take a picture of the snake on my couch. Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Let me turn this ISO up a little bit.
Don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. I said don't touch it. Don't
All right. So hopefully you guys can see this. Okay. So there's the snake. I'm using an 85 millimeter, so it's probably not the right lens for this. So if I tap on the screen, oh, also, look, this is just a snake, but it found its eye. So check this out. I haven't even done anything. I haven't pushed any buttons. Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, it didn't this time, but it did a second ago. I don't know if you saw it, but oh, there it is. Can you see how it's following the eye of the snake? Can you see that little square? And see how it keeps following? That's how I know for sure it's going to focus on that eye. So now I have to just push my shutter. Oh, I could tap on it and it would take a picture. So that's what the touch enabled shutter does. But if I turn it off, I can still tap and focus on this eye and it will still follow. But let's say that that's not the eye I wanted to focus on. Let's say I wanted to focus on a different eye or somebody else. then this is what I do. I use the back of my screen. I learned to do that with my EOS R. I discovered that it's way, way faster than putting your eye up to this and trying to use your thumb or whatever it is to do the drag focus. And if that works for you, then great. I do use it occasionally, especially if it's really bright out and I'm having a hard time seeing the screen. Then I will use that sometimes too. But most of the time I shoot like this. I shoot with my right hand right here next to my shutter and my left hand here on the bottom of the camera. And then when I want to focus on something, I use this thumb right here. So I'll go like this and I'll tap, and then I'll lock the focus and I'll take a picture. So that's how I use my camera. Most, like 90% of the time. I will use it like this. I'll kind of like, can you see sort of, I don't know. See, this might not work for everybody, but this is what works for me. I use my LCD screen like 99% of the time, and I'll just tap. And if I don't like the eye that it's focused on, then I focus on the other eye, and you can see that it locks in. And I can do the same thing with multiple people. If it focused on one person and I didn't want it to focus there, I just tap on the next person and it will focus and lock on the next person. So that is how I handle multiple people. Okay, so now I am going to show you a couple of other settings. I've actually changed several settings to show you what works for me. So here are the settings that are in the menu that I thought would be relevant. I pretty much didn't change any settings, I think, in this first set of menus where the camera icon is, because most of them, except for on the first screen, which most of you would have done to change my image quality to RAW, but I'm sure you all would do that. So in the autofocus, you can also see here where it's the same. I should put this next to my face so it focuses on it, right? Anyway, the AF operation is on Servo AF, which I already showed you. The AF method is the autofocus with the face tracking. The subject, right here, the subject to detect is set to people, and that's the default, but you actually can change it to animals. So you could see that, and that's not to say that it won't focus on animals. It's just saying that the priority is to focus on people. If you're taking a picture of an animal and the animal is the only one in the photo, then it will focus on the animal's eyes. And you could see that it focused on the eyes of my snake, and obviously that's not even alive. So especially if it's got if you're focusing on something that's got a really strong spot or some strong contrast to it, it will have no problem focusing and locking on that thing, even if it's a totally random object and it's not even a face. Okay, so I just keep mine on people, but if you want to change it to animals, you could totally do that. Okay, let's go back. So the eye detection I have enabled, and I showed you that as well. The continuous autofocus. So you can see that I have this disabled, and how this is different from the Servo. Okay, listen to this. Hold on a second. Let me tell my kids to be quiet. All right, so hopefully they'll stop screaming. Okay, so right now, let me enable this, and then hopefully you can hear the difference. So this is enabled. So now when this is enabled, okay, now listen to this. Can you hear it continuously focusing, even though I don't have my finger halfway down on the shutter? It's continually focusing. And so if my finger is not on the shutter, I don't want it to be continually focusing. It's going to take up a lot of energy, a lot of battery power. And so I don't want that. I only want it to continually focus when I have this shutter halfway pressed. So I'm going to go back to the menu and I'm going to turn this off. And I'm not sure if that's enabled by default or not, but I wanted to point it out. Okay. And then you can kind of do the same thing with movie servo too, but I never do videos, so, you know, this is just, oh, it says enabled. You know, like I said, I never do videos, so it doesn't matter. Okay, the touch and drag AF settings. So let's say that you do want to shoot with your eye up to the viewfinder and you want to use the touch and drag. So this is where you would change those settings. And you have, and I believe Caitlin went over this as well. So I have touch and drag enabled for when I do put my eye up to the viewfinder, but I don't do that very often myself. The positioning method of absolute to relative. Let's see, how do I explain this? I have mine on absolute, which means that the focus point is going to move at the same rate that my finger goes across the screen. So let me show you. Relative means that the focus point is going to move at a faster rate than your finger is going. So if you look in there, there's my snake. Sorry, this is really hard to do. There we go. So I'm going to touch, and can you see the little red square moving across? So I'm moving my finger across my screen, and I'm going to rest it right here on the eye, and then I'm going to focus. And you can see that it focuses right there. But if I wanted to refocus, I could drag my point around and focus on something different. Let's say I wanted to focus on, sorry, this is really hard to see. Refocus on something behind the snake. It doesn't like, because there's nothing to focus on back there. That's why it's having a hard time. But anyway, let me focus back on the snake here. There we go. So you can kind of see how that focus and drag thing works right there. Okay. Then the next one is, sorry, let me go back. The next one says active touch area. And this is also definitely one you're going to have to figure out on your own what works better for you. Because if you decide that you want to, you could see the options here. It says whole panel, right, left, top, bottom, top right, bottom right, top left, and bottom left. There's pretty much every option in the entire world. I do whole panel, but the reason why they have it restricted, like why wouldn't you just want to be able to touch on whatever part of the panel you want and then drag your finger around, is because of your face. So if my eye is up to the viewfinder like this and my big nose is tapping on the screen and refocusing that focus point, then that won't be good. And that was a mistake that I discovered early on when I got my EOS R, is my nose kept refocusing, and that was super frustrating because at first I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, why does my focus point keep moving? It's because my face was touching the camera. So that's another reason why I shoot just like this instead of with my eye up here. And I have to use this eye because this eye is kind of going bad, but I know most people shoot like this. But so just be mindful when you're putting your face up to your screen not to let your nose or your face touch the screen, because then it will mess with your focus point. But that's another reason why they give you the option to limit where you can do your focus point. So if you choose just to use the top right because your nose is always touching the left-hand side, well, then your nose is not going to affect your focus point. So that's what that is for. I just keep mine on whole panel because I've gotten used to being careful with not letting my face touch the LCD screen. Another one of my favorite settings is focus peaking, and if you guys have not done this, you are going to love it so much. So it's in the number 2 of the autofocus settings menu. So I'm going to go to number 2 here, and it's the very first one on number 2. So it says manual peaking settings. So if you tap on that, you have the option of doing peaking on, which I don't know if it's on by default, but I turn mine on if it's not. Okay, so in order to use focus peaking, you have to change your lens or the settings on your camera to manual focusing, or to, I think you could do it in one shot too, I'm not sure. But turn your lens to manual focusing, and then you will start to see these weird red things, and they actually help you to focus, and it's pretty cool. So let me show you. Okay, now I'm going to show you my focus peaking settings. So here's focus peaking, or sorry, right here, on menu number 2 of the AF, manual peaking settings. And I have peaking on. This is super cool. And then level high, you can do high or low. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what high or low means. So you'll have to figure that one out. And then I have mine on color red. And I will show you what that color means. So right here, I have set up my ring. And I just put it on one of my daughter's Boleros. So let me move this out a little bit. So I'm going to use my camera, and I got my 100mm macro here, and I'm going to focus on this ring. So I'm going to do this in 2 different ways. In one, I'm going to use the colors. So here we go. So I'm going to, here's the ring right here, and and also I've got this switched on to manual. So this works when your lens is in manual mode. Manual focusing. Okay, so you'll notice I'm gonna focus manually, and can you guys see the red? Can you see how the red is shifting and changing as I'm refocusing? When you see the red on the prongs of that ring, you know it's in focus, and you can take that picture. Now let me show you the picture I just took, and let me zoom in here. Cool, right? See that prong? Perfectly in focus. And so that is how that focus peaking can really help you. Here's another thing you can do. So if you want, you can also push this magnifying glass button right here. And if let me find that. If I push that, it says image cannot be magnified in AF mode. Oh, I guess I have to turn my mode to spot AF. I didn't think I had to do that, but okay, well. Anyway, and then I push this. Okay, look, check this out. It magnifies and zooms way in, and then I can focus. I can see the focus how I like it, and then take the picture. And yeah, it's hard to do, hard to keep but here we go. Here's my picture. I know, not the best picture in the world, but it's just an example. And see that? Totally sharp, right? I mean, I'm nailing ring shot focus every time. So hopefully that is helpful. I found one more setting that I wanted to show you. So it's in this playback menu here, and it's number 5, and it's this middle one here. It's called AF point display, and I think it's disabled initially. I like to enable that, and that is so your autofocus point will display when you look at the back of the camera. I like to know where my autofocus point is, and so I like it to show up. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want it there. You know, maybe I guess if you didn't want it in the way, but I like mine to show up. So that's one setting that I like to make sure is on.